Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kevin for those of you that are new. If you're new here, we talk a lot about beauty. We touch on makeup, hair care, skincare, we do it all, and I would love to have you subscribe. In today's video specifically, we're going to talk about how our makeup is changing. There's a lot of talk right now about us gearing more towards matte makeup and cloud skin. That's a big trend that's happening over on TikTok right now. So we're going to talk about products that kind of fit that mold, that soft matte, somewhat luminous matte makeup, all of the products that I love that kind of fit that category. I feel like we got to a point, especially during the pandemic, where we focused a little bit more on skincare, and that kind of geared us towards really like showing off our skin in a very dewy and luminous way. So our makeup became very dewy. Our foundations, our skin tints, our blushes, our contours, everything that we were using had somewhat of a luminosity to it. And now I find that we're kind of pulling away from that and gearing more towards like our traditional full glam, full coverage, somewhat matte makeup. I feel like a lot of color is coming up again, and it's somewhat exciting. But I find that where we are now, it's like a good in-between space. It's a very soft or luminous matte. So as far as skin prep goes, we're talking primers and moisturizers. I really only have one that I truly like that's somewhat of a soft matte finish. I find that with my primers, I'm either wanting something that's very moisturizing, so sometimes I just use a moisturizer, or I want something that's a sticky primer. It's not necessarily giving me any luminosity, and it's not really giving me any like matte finish. It's just something to elongate my foundation, so I like to use the Milk Makeup one or the e.l.f. one. But as far as a soft matte primer goes, I really enjoy this one by Cali Ray, and I like it because it's somewhat soft matte, but it's also really hydrating and plumping for the skin. It does call itself a fully matte primer, but I found it to be somewhat soft matte and only somewhat blurring as well. It's not the most blurring primer that I've tried, but I really enjoy because it has these skincare ingredients in it. It has these collagen peptides. It has things like niacinamide, but it also has those silicones in it to really give a smooth finish to the skin. I also feel like it pairs really well with my favorite foundation, which is the Haus Labs foundation, because there's a lot of silicone in that. And I like to use my silicone primers with my silicone-based foundations. And on the other side of that, my water-based primers with my water-based foundation. And honestly, just the consistency alone is just really nice on the skin. This is what it looks like. I find that it's very lightweight and just kind of melts and soaks into the skin. It feels somewhat of like a silicone gel, and it's just a nice soft matte base for your foundation. I also just love the feel of silicones, and silicones are not bad for your skin at all. As far as foundations go, and I feel like this is the most important thing when you're looking for that soft matte or soft luminous matte look, foundation is going to be one of the most important things, because if you use a too luminous of a foundation, it's obviously going to gear you a little bit more towards just dewy and luminous makeup. But on the other end of it, if you use too much of a matte foundation, it's just going to kind of like matte you out too much. It's going to somewhat flatten you out. You could look cakey. There's obviously more like glamorous matte foundations out there now, but I find that this like soft matte or soft luminous matte makeup look, or this cloud skin, it's somewhat of a lit from within kind of glow that you get in combination with matte. It's a perfect balance, and I feel like there's two foundations that I've tried that I think just fit that mold really well. One of them, which I mentioned in the last video, is by Fenty Beauty. This is the Pro Filt'r Soft Matte Foundation. Like I said in that video, Miss Fenty is doing the work for you. This is a perfect in-between space between matte and dewy. It's comfortable, it's lightweight, it's somewhat luminous. I feel like the shade range just speaks for itself. This is one of my most complimented foundations, and I feel like I see somewhat mixed reviews about this, and I don't really understand why. I think a lot of people talk about how it oxidizes. I have not experienced any oxidation. Let's see what shade I'm in. I'm in the shade 160, and I've experienced no oxidation whatsoever. I was matched for this foundation at the Fenty Beauty event, so I am using like my perfect match, and I can say it's a really perfect match. I love this thing, but I've had no problems with this whatsoever. I feel like this is a fantastic foundation. And another one that's a little similar but definitely more lightweight is this one by YSL. It's the All Hours foundation. I feel like this shade is a tiny bit too light for me, but I can just like pack on the bronzer or the contour and I can make it work. This one is in the shade LN3. It says it's a luminous matte foundation up to 24 full coverage weightless feel. I do want to say I find that the coverage of these are pretty similar. I find that they're more towards like a medium coverage, not necessarily a full coverage, but both of them are very buildable. But I am really liking this one right now, especially because of how lightweight it is. It's somewhat of like a serum consistency, very liquidy and very lightweight on the skin. I also feel like it blends really nicely and just sits on the skin really beautifully. Because this foundation is just a tad bit too light for me, I do also mix this in with other foundations. Like one of my favorite combos right now is this, plus the foundation from Ilia. This is the True Skin Serum Foundation with niacinamide and allantoin. It also has some aloe in it. I feel like this combination is perfect, especially because this one's like a little bit too dark and this one's a little bit too light. And because this one is so lightweight and somewhat matte, somewhat luminous, I feel like it's a perfect base and a perfect thing to like mix in with other foundations. Like I said earlier, every single product that we were using was luminous or dewy, down to the blushes and the contours and the bronzers. Now, I don't really like luminous bronzers or contours regardless. I just feel like a matte kind of sits better on the skin, and I have a lot of options because I've really explored like contours and bronzers, and essentially I find that they are very similar. They're kind of the same thing. The only difference is a contour is going to be a little bit more cool tone and bronzers are going to be a little bit more warm, but I feel like I can use one or the other and really get away with it. So I mentioned in the last video these Fenty matchsticks. This one's in the shade Amber Suede. I really like this one. I find that it's a bit more cool toned, so I think it works really well as a contour. I really enjoy one of the newer launches by Nude Sticks. This one's in the shade Bondi Belle. I feel like this shade is really nice, and their whole line is excellent. These like nudies mattes are really nice. You can see this one's like a tiny bit warmer but very similar in shades. These ones blend beautifully as well. And then I also really like this one from Nude Sticks. This one is a tinted blur sculpt stick, and one of the main reasons I like this is because it's a cream to powder formula, so it kind of just sets itself. And you can see how these two are a little bit warmer than the Fenty, but you can use them either way. They're just something to add a little bit of color and a little bit of shape and sculpt to your face, and I always use a ton of bronzer and contour. I love to add that color and that warmth to my face. This is also one of my favorite bronzers in the entire world. This one's by Say. This is the Sun Melt bronzer. This one's in the shade Light Bronze, and this one is really nice, really creamy, and does have a matte finish to it. But you can definitely see how warm that one is. The Say one is also the one that I use the most. I really love this one. I love that it's in this like big pot, and let me just tell you, the Say bronzer with the IT Cosmetics brush, this is like the Flawless Complexion brush. This combo is chef's kiss. And I do want to mention a new launch by Tower 28. They are officially launching a contour, and I'm so excited. They actually had a bronzer, and I want to show you the difference of these. This is a perfect example of us like moving towards this soft matte makeup because their bronzers are pretty luminous, and the contour is the exact same formula just without that luminosity, which I'm so happy about because when I tried this bronzer, I feel like it was definitely pretty, and it's the same formula as the blushes, which are some of my favorite blushes of all time. But that luminosity just kind of bugged me because I'm already somewhat luminous with my foundation and my blushes, and I just feel like the contour and the bronzers, I just want them to be matte, especially if we're trying to create like a shadow on our face. So I'm very happy that they decided to launch the contours with no luminosity. This is the bronzer, and I'll show you how luminous it is. Here is the bronzer, and you can definitely see how luminous this is. Here is the contour. Now these things just launched this week. I think this week. I'm going to an event with them on Friday when this video goes up, so I believe that they will be launched on Friday. I think. Don't hold me to that. So again, this is the bronzer, and then this is the contour. I hope you can see the difference. They're still cream, so it's going to give somewhat of a glow, but this one doesn't have the shimmer that the bronzer has. And here they are side by side. This is the contour, and then this one's the bronzer. Now Tower 28 and Charlotte Tilbury did this. They kind of came out with these like matte versions of their glowy and dewy products, which I think is so on trend. So Charlotte Tilbury, if you didn't see, came out with these matte blush wands, which I think is so smart because her blush wands are very popular. Her blush wands and her contour wands. The blush ones are very dewy, and I do really love those. I think I like these more. I think I like these ones more, and I feel like the shades are so beautiful. So she came out with 4 different shades. This one is Peach Pop, we have Pink Pop, the stunning and the famous Pillow Talk, and then Dream Pop. I'll go ahead and swatch these for you. I'm wearing Peach Pop right now. So blendable, so beautiful, just sit on the skin really nicely. It's the same beautiful blendability that the original formula has, just matte, and I feel like it's very beautiful. So this is the one that I'm wearing today. This is Peach Pop. Then we have Pink Pop. Here is Pillow Talk. This one is Dream Pop. You can't tell me these shades are not absolutely stunning. And I think when Miss Charlotte takes notes to trends, like the Queen of Glow herself, when she launches a matte product, we need to listen. We need to take notice. This is the new thing. Matte makeup is in when Miss Charlotte Tilbury says so. Going back to Nude Sticks for a moment, like I said, the Nudies Matte collection, they have both contours and also blushes. This is a really beautiful line, and 2 of my favorites are Nude Buff and also Sunkissed Cool. These are really nice blendable matte formulas. This one is in Nude Buff, and then this is a newer shade. This one is in Sunkissed Cool. Another important step in this soft matte makeup is your powders. Now there's certain powders that I really love, like the Kosas Cloud set. There's also the Say Air Cloud set, or Air set, I think. Those are really nice. Those keep that glow in place when you're using a very luminous like skin tint, tinted moisturizer, foundation, those types of powders. They're gonna keep that glow. But if you want something that's semi-mattifying, I have 3 options for you. 2 of them are true setting powders, and then 1 I find to be like a finishing powder. So the first setting powder is my trusty Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. This is one that I use every single day. I feel like it sets everything in place really, really well without making you look cakey. And then another one I really like that's honestly pretty comparable to the translucent setting powder by Laura Mercier is this one by House Labs. This is their Bio Blurring Loose Setting Powder. I also feel like this sets everything in place really nicely without making you look cakey. I really need my powder to soak into the skin really well as soon as I layer it with that setting spray. I need my setting spray to be able to melt these powders into those creams and liquid formulas and just kind of melt and blend everything together. And I feel like these two powders work really nicely for that. After using these powders, if you want to mattify and blur just ever so slightly, just even more, I don't even know why I said ever so slightly because this thing is very blurring. This is the Milani Conceal and Perfect Blur Out Powder. This thing is very, very blurring. Now I do want to make sure you are using this after you use your regular translucent setting powder, because if you use it before, I find that it does give the skin somewhat of like a gray look to it. This is truly like a finishing powder. This is a setting powder to set your makeup, and then to top it off you would use a finishing powder. Very blurring, very mattifying. I like to use it just in my T-zone if anything, so I can kind of keep a glow up here. So I'm not truly matte all over. I'm really looking for that balance, so I use this one in specific places, but very blurring and also very inexpensive. And then I want to mention one thing for the eyes. Now I feel like the eyes are going to be a little more simple, a little more easy to adapt to certain looks because you just use a powder, you use an eyeshadow that doesn't really have glitter to it. It's going to be somewhat easier for you, but I really like this, and this gives you a matte look. This is by About Face. It's their fluid eye paints. Their matte formulas are really beautiful. I love this one. It's in like a plum color. They are so blendable. They sit really nicely on the lid too, especially with me. I have hooded eyes, so a lot of times I'll get like major creasing in the eyelids, but I feel like a fluid eye paint like this one, it's pretty much like a liquid eyeshadow. It settles down and it sits throughout the day. It's really nice. It doesn't crease. You can do some crazy looks with these. They have a beautiful range of shades. I would highly recommend you checking these out, especially if you want to add some kind of color or flush of color to the lid. These are great for beginners. They're really blendable. They're really easy, especially if you use them before you use your foundation or your concealer, so you can kind of clean it up with those products. So those are some of the products that I'm using to achieve this soft matte or soft luminous matte makeup look. Cloud skin, call it whatever you would like. It's pretty much just soft matte. I feel like it's a great look. It's doable. It kind of fits both parties here. You know, people who want that like luminous makeup look or people who want matte. It's a perfect in between space, and I'm really here for it. And I feel like there's a lot of really great products that kind of fit this category of soft matte makeup. It can also just be a mix of your luminous makeup with your matte makeup. So I love to use a base like the e.l.f. Liquid Halo Glow. I like to use that under my matte foundations, and I feel like that gives a really nice balance. There's just a lot of ways that you can achieve this type of makeup look. As always, all these products and my information, it's all going to be listed down below. Make sure before you go to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe before you head out. Make sure to leave all of your favorite soft matte makeup products in the comments down below, and I will see you all in my next video very, very soon. Bye guys.